So, Invincible had a devastating battle with Omni-Man, but as we know, sometime after their battle, Omni-Man returned and had a change of heart. Later, they joined the coalition of planets and fought against Thrag and the Viltrumite Empire. After the Viltrumite War, Omni-Man became the ruler of the new Viltrumite Empire while Mark left Earth and moved to planet Telescria with his wife and daughter. Soon, Mark gets the news from Alan that they've found Thrag's location and they want Mark to finish off Thrag while he's weak. Mark and Eve talk before Mark has to leave to find Thrag. She talks about how she isn't adjusting to life on Telescria. As she stresses, Mark decides to let her relax while he takes care of Terra Grayson. Eve goes to see the sights around the planet while Mark played and took care of Terra. As the duo cuddle, Mark suggests that they leave this planet and find a planet similar to Earth, but Eve says that she wants to adjust to Telescria instead. And the duo cuddle one last time before Mark has to go off. Early that morning, the coalition forces prepare to deploy and Mark says his goodbyes to Eve and Terra. Mark's younger brother, Oliver Grayson, arrives and he is excited about the mission. Mark reminds him that Thrag had severely injured him previously, much to Oliver's annoyance. Alan the alien walks up to Eve and asks her to call him if she needs help with life on Telescria. Then the coalition deploys and the two brothers go as well. Mark worries over Oliver as Oliver stresses if he'll be okay. Mark declares his love for his brother and worries over the possibility of Thrag's children becoming stronger. Soon, they arrive on the target planet and are in shock because it appears that Thrag and his children were never there. Soon, they find the spy and he reveals to not know where Space Racer and Thrag are located. So the coalition searches the planet for signs of Thrag or the Thraxans. Mark and Oliver separate and search the entire planet. While looking for Thrag, Mark descends into a cave and sees a mysterious blue entity. Mark is confused at first, but he tries to talk to it and touches it. But then, a sudden flash of light appears and blinds him. Mark kind of loses consciousness, and then he wakes up in the exact same place where he was before he got his powers and he had his current memories intact. Mark is confused at first, as he is not able to wrap his head around what is happening to him. Soon his mother comes and yells at him and tells him to come out and get ready for school. Debbie continues to yell for Mark, and Mark comes out while still being confused. He sees his father fighting on the TV screen and he offers to help, but then he remembers that he doesn't have powers yet. After this, he goes to school and after getting out of class, he goes to talk to Eve and tells her that he is from the future, much to her disbelief. He begins talking about how he knows much about her and this intrigues her. So he is brought to the Teen Team base, where her teammates are in as much disbelief. As he begins to talk about how he knows about Rex's past as a poor child, Rex begins to get angry and suspects that he's from the government. Kate and Robot arrive and he talks about how Robot isn't a robot, but a deformed person. Everyone is shocked after realizing how much Mark knows about each of them. Moments later, he tells them about David Hiles and his evil plans. But his plans are put to a stop before any children are killed, much to the surprise of the teen team. Robot discusses how his lack of relation with people would cause him to do something drastic, similar to what he has done in the past timeline. Mark worries about it, but then decides to not say anything. Robot asks that Mark can try to save as many people as possible, but not alter things too much. When Mark is about to leave, Eve asks if she should drop him home, but Mark says that he should have gotten his powers by now, and he was right, as he was able to fly away on his own. Later that night, the Grayson family eats dinner, and afterwards, Mark flies out in frustration, waiting for this new timeline to get over with. The next day, he goes to see Art Rosenbaum to get a costume for himself. Then he stops Titan's burglary, the Mauler twins project, and D.A. Sinclair's reanimate project in Upstate University. After defeating him, Mark tells Sinclair not to worry as he will get his redemption. But even after doing so much good, Mark grows depressed and contemplates whether or not he is doing the right thing. The next morning, the teen team, along with Invincible, fights the Flaxons and manages to defeat them. However, Nolan soon finds out about Mark's powers and is surprised to see that his son hid his powers from him. After dinner, an upset Nolan talks to Mark about it, and Mark asks to talk with him privately. They go above their house and meet to talk about it. Mark becomes depressed and asks Nolan a serious question. Does he love him and his mother? Thinking about it strongly, Nolan says that he does. Hearing this, Mark asks him not to try to take over the planet. Nolan frowns and clenches his fist. Invincible and his dad are floating in the sky, and Nolan is in disbelief that Mark knows he planned on killing the Guardians of the Globe. Invincible quickly recounts all the events and tells him what will happen and how he'll ultimately give up after realizing his love for his family and Earth. However, after hearing everything that Invincible said, Nolan becomes upset and attacks Invincible. As they battle, Invincible thinks that he might be able to handle his father this time, but things were not in his favor. Omni-Man refuses to listen to anything and continues to beat Invincible, and this forces Invincible to run and think of a different plan. So while getting his ass kicked by his father, Invincible leads Nolan to Utah. As Nolan continues to punch Invincible, they fly through a wall into the Guardians of the Globe's headquarters. The Guardians are shocked as to what's going on, but Mark quickly tells them how Nolan is a traitor and is trying to take over the Earth. So after understanding the situation, they all team up to attack Nolan. As they continue to fight, the Immortal tells Nolan that he never liked him, and Nolan punches a hole through the Immortal's chest while saying the feeling is mutual. Just then, Green Ghost phases through Nolan, and this causes him a lot of discomfort and pain. So while he's disoriented, War Woman knocks him out with her hammer. Then it is immediately revealed that the Immortal survived this encounter, unlike in the original timeline. Soon, Cecil Stedman arrives and agrees to take Nolan into custody. Later, at the Pentagon, Nolan wakes up and finds himself in shackles. He profusely apologizes to Mark and tells him he just snapped. Mark feels regret for having him imprisoned, but Nolan thanks Mark for letting him see that he does love his family and Earth. So it was during this time after his battle against Omni-Man that Alan the alien visits Earth. So when Alan comes, Mark warns Alan the alien about the Viltrumites' plan to take over Earth. He also tells him of his father and how he will join him in the fight. Alan goes to the Pentagon with him, and Nolan reveals his change of heart to Alan. Nolan is soon released and says his goodbyes to Debbie before going with Alan into space. Cecil Stedman thanks Mark, and Mark tells him to give him a headset so that he can tell him where to go and where other bad things will happen. Later, Mark goes to fight the Lizard League, the Elephant, Doc Seismic, and then to fight the Flaxons along with the Reanimen, old and new Guardians of the Globe, and the Teen Team. Mark saves Eve from a Flaxon blast, and Rexplode reminds him that Eve is with him and not Mark, much to his frustration. Mark arrives home and his mother asks if he wants to talk. Mark says that he's exhausted and goes to his room. He begins crying and the mysterious entity that put him back in time appears. It speaks to him and says that he has undone much death and asks why Mark is sad. Mark reveals that he doesn't like his old life. The entity reveals that Mark's altering this timeline prevented Eve from finding out about Rex's affair with Duplicate. The entity goes on to say that Mark was chosen by them for his selflessness and influence on others to save the universe. But they also say that Mark has the choice to go back to his original universe. Mark says that he wants to go back, shocking the entity. He goes on to say that Terra would not exist in the universe he is currently in, and that would mean essentially killing his daughter. The entity is baffled that Mark would choose one life over thousands of others and offers Mark one last chance to stay, and he says no. The entity calls him a disgrace and that he has doomed that reality. The glowing alien entity emits a light and returns Mark to his original reality. Mark gets out of the cave he was previously in. He sees that the spaceship from Telescria is wrecked and rushes back to Telescria. When he gets home, he finds Eve on the balcony and calls out to her. She is shocked by his appearance, and Mark explains where he was, much to her surprise. He reveals that he was gone for 2 weeks and that he made the choice of Terra Grayson over thousands of other people. He asks to see Terra, and when he sees her, he becomes happy, but starts crying after he realizes that Terra is much older than before, meaning that he has missed years of her childhood. Mark soon came to realize that he was not gone for few weeks. Instead, he was missing for the past 5 years, and everyone had assumed that he was dead. So yeah, that's all for this video, and thanks for watching.